And we are going. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Eric, aka Young God, coming to you live in the Green Dungeon today, giving it to you real raw rugged. And I got somebody on the other line. I'm gonna let him introduce himself, man. Who do we got?
What's up, guys? I'm Mekki Leeper. I'm here to talk to Eric.
Hey, man, how you doing today?
Doing well. Things are good. Yeah, doing some construction downstairs, but other than
Okay.
that, good. Yeah.
Well, I feel like every time I interview somebody and they resemble somebody else, I have to let them know. It's like a thing I always do. So I'm pretty sure
Right.
you've heard this before. So before I even say who I say, who do you think I'm gonna say?
It's got to be logic,
It's
right?
definitely Logic, man.
Yeah,
You look like
yeah,
Logic with a Division III scholarship in baseball, and
yeah.
I've been thinking that the whole time. Like, wow, this is like Logic little brother. So that's
Yeah,
crazy.
dude.
How often do you get that?
I get that probably every day. Probably every day. Yeah, I think crowds think that. Sometimes I'll bring it up with crowds now, and they like all get it at the same time. So it's funny.
Have you ever like? I feel like you can get some benefits for pretending to be him. Like, ever in the street and just like, just gonna be Logic. Like, I'm pretty sure you get free food being Logic.
I could probably get free stuff out of it. I definitely have had people on the street think that I'm Logic for a second. I can like see them go like, oh, never mind. You know what I mean? Like I see it in their face. They can tell.
That's funny. Have you ever had anybody like go through with it? Like, "Eh, oh my gosh, you're Logic. Like, oh.
No, no one's ever like gone as far as to, like ask for a picture or
Mm.
something like that.
Would
But
you play
it's
alone?
funny. I don't know what I would do in the moment. I might just do it and I'll like sign some shit for them and they'll figure it out later. That's
That
funny.
is really funny. So yeah. So before we get to this interview, I have to bring this up because I'm just like before I interviewed you, my mind has been like super duper blown since we were talking about rap. I just discovered this new rapper. I don't know if you've seen this, kind of blowing up on Twitter right now, but
Okay.
there's a new dark web slash scamming rapper. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
This is interesting.
Are you familiar with the dark web?
I mean, am I familiar with the dark web in the sense that like I know what it is,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Not
I'm
like have
not
you been
like
on there
on
like
there,
looking
you
at like
know?
looking
Yeah,
at like like crazy videos, but yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like yeah, this rapper he was like, hey, check this guy out, and it's a 6 second video on YouTube and or on Twitter, excuse me, and he starts off the song. He says, "The government just banned me off the dark web. I downloaded Tor and went back in, downloaded a VPN, and it cuts off." And I'm like, I have to listen to this guy, and this guy
Yeah, that's kind of why.
this guy might be the most ridiculous human I've ever came across. Like he's talking about the government burnt his IP, so now he's using free Wi-Fi at Hooters. What else did he say? Just a lot of crazy stuff, man. He
This
said,
guy's great.
"I'm telling, bro, this
You know what's
is
so funny?
amazing."
Yeah, you got into this guy off of a 6 second video. You talked about him for maybe 30 seconds, and I'm kind of in.
I've been in so in, man. He said that he walked inside of Verizon and like you know how you could like play with the phones and whatnot. He's been like punching in and scam people off of those. He said that
Oh my god.
he scams this white guy in Boston regularly. Like I'm gonna send you this when we're off here. It's a mind blowing things, man. So shout
Wow.
out to TJ6X. I don't know where he came from, but shout out to that young man right there. But yeah, like what type of music are you into, man? Because that's what I'm in right now.
What type of music am I into? You know, I'm so bad with this because I'm bad at remembering like artist names and stuff. And my Spotify recently liked is always a mess, and that's what I listen to. I'll just like go down and I listen to like songs in the order that I liked them. Does that make sense? Do you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that?
definitely, definitely.
So it's like if I look right now, it's Pusha T, No Name, but then also I don't even know what this band is. Like Marabou State, like I just found them on some kind of shuffle thing. I'm
Mm.
sure. Young Nudie, but then like Snail Mail is next, Mallrat is after that, Vampire Weekend. So it's a lot. It's a spread of things, but it's all pretty popular.
Do you have music that you listen to like I guess pump you up for like your stand up the same way I guess Eminem would like your palms are sweaty, like do you have like your palms are sweaty
Right.
song?
You know, it's funny. I have like a little playlist of stuff like that if I really want to get excited, and that's a lot. It's like Drake, Lil Wayne, Meek Mill is on there a good bit, but I don't do that too much before shows because if you get into this like crazy bravado mode, it's not always right for the show, and so like I don't want to go in with this like crazy like Rick Ross
Yeah.
confidence and then bomb horrifically for like 25 people or whatever. So I be careful. I try to be careful with listening to too much music before I go on.
I'm glad you brought up like Rick Ross confidence. It's really random, but I don't know if you ever watched a Rick Ross interview, but he's a very overdramatic human. Like if you ever hear him like describe things, it's almost
Right.
DJ Khaled esque.
Dude, he's like, well, it feels like a, and it's, well, first of all, I'm not like any kind of an expert on stuff or whatever. But it, and people say this a lot, it feels like a big part of it, if you're super super famous, is almost like being like in like WWE. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be like a superhero character, and Rick Ross is that, and I think that's cool. But yeah.
Do you think that you'll do you see yourself becoming like a character as you get more and more notoriety?
No, I don't think so. I think that maybe that was the way the comedy was like 20 years ago or something. That you had to be more of a character for people to latch on. But there's so much comedy now that I think people really want people to be themselves. So I think that that's kind of a cool new development with comedy. Is that, you know, just be super honest all the time.
Yeah, I do think music and comedy actually like kind of correlate if you want it to, and I feel like somebody like Dave Chappelle has definitely like brought that in the way he'll
Sure.
like have live sets and stuff like that. And also I just want to say this: somebody just texted me and said, "Just listen to TJ6X." I literally just dropped my smoothie laughing. So yeah, this guy, this guy's a
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I have to.
Human.
I've checked this guy out.
This guy's crazy. But anyway, yeah, back to that. I feel like there's like a intertwining of a lot of arts because comedy is an art, music is an art, and I feel like music is kind of one of those arts that can literally like correlate and kind of like correspond with almost any art, even if it's dance, creative writing. I don't know why, but it's accessible. You know, people say like music is like universal. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that music is so much cooler than comedy.
Mm.
I like, every time I'm at a show, before the show starts, I'm like, man, it's so much like stand up. And then the band is on, or like the rapper is on, or whoever's on, and I'm like, this is nothing like comedy at all. This is so much cooler. These people are like, enjoying it in such a different way. But I do think that it's universal in the sense that like anybody who makes anything has music that kind of inspires them to do it, which is cool.
And I feel like I don't know. Why do you think music is more cool than comedy? Why what makes you say that?
Well, because like I think that bands that are like, okay, this week I went and saw Puck, and so they're like, surf rock band kind of thing of marginal popularity. They're not like absurdly famous, but they are famous. They're like known
Mm-hmm.
now. I'd say they're headlining a big tour and whatever. And it's like the people that come out to see them, it's like 1,000 people. And to be a comedian who like gets that many people excited to come out to a show, you have to be like absurdly famous. So I think that the accessibility or like the ease with which people will just go to a like a music show and have a good time is different than comedy. Um, and I just think that like the show itself, with all like the lights and the way that people connect to it, and that it's more of like a mood, or like the crowd is like one big organism dancing together, is just different than comedy. Comedy is more like, I don't know, it's more like a movie or like theater, I think, than that.
I also feel like music may be a little bit more accessible in the point of like you don't have to per se be relatable. Like you could listen
No.
to like a gangster rapper, you could listen to like a surf rock band and not be from any of those backgrounds but still enjoy it. I feel like you can
Yeah.
you can enjoy a comedian and not be from their background, but most of your times your favorite comedians are like people that you can relate with their stories and things like that.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, and I think that it requires a lot more. You have to pay attention more. You know, and there's kind of like, you can think about it however you want or whatever, but there's kind of one conclusion to be drawn from a joke. But music is so cool because you and I can listen to the same song and think a completely different thing about it, or have it mean a completely different thing. So yeah, but they're both cool.
Yeah, they are. And I guess to kind of rewind to like your beginnings in comedy, I like to think myself as a top-notch journalist. So I watched a couple interviews you did, and I seen that
Nice.
you said you were bombing at first. That's what a lot of people do, right?
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
I've never did stand-up comedy. I think the closest thing I've ever done is like doing like things that could be taken as comedy on stage if you have that type of humor. Like for example, like in sports, like you have National Signing Day in college where you sign off to the college or whatever. And one of my friends, he was going to a big college, so I said, hey, let me do a funny poem for the school, and I did it. And when I got on stage, I don't know if you can agree with this or not, but it's like when you get on stage and you get that first laugh, it's like okay, I'm cooking. But it's like when you're
Oh
talking
yeah.
and it's like ha da da, and they're like, and at
So
and at first it was kind of like ha da da, and they were like, and then I said ha da 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 da, and it was like ha ha, and I was like, all right, I'm good now. So you need that kind of
yeah.
first confidence boost, you know?
I think that the wow, that's such an interesting insight that a lot of people who don't do comedy would not have. But yeah, that's a very important thing. The first laugh is big. It matters a lot in every set. Still, I'm much more confident about how I'm going to get the first laugh than I was at the beginning. But yeah, imagine you're waiting for that first laugh, not through the first few things you say, but you're waiting for the first laugh for like a couple weeks or something like that. You know, you're like, so yeah. I mean, I was terrible at the beginning. The one thing that's I think unique to stand for the things that are like this, and people talk about it all the time, is you have to learn in front of other people. So you can't like be in your bedroom and put together an album and drop it and have people say like this is amazing. You have to check if every line is funny a bunch of times before you're confident that it's funny. So yeah, there's way more embarrassment involved, and it took time to like learn how to do a set for sure.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, man. Like something that like you just said, the couple weeks before this show, like building up on like is this funny or not. That's like the most nerve wracking thing because I do these little things where like I do these little raps on Instagram, but it's supposed to be funny. So
Yeah.
I'm writing it. I'm like, oh my, I'm gonna kill Instagram with this. But then like a couple weeks after, I'm like, this isn't really that funny. I don't know if you struggle with that sometimes, but it's like, is this funny? And I don't
I
know.
mean,
How do you deal with that?
it's well, okay. So I started in a very similar way, where I started as on like YouTube. I think a lot of people in this like generation of
Yeah.
anybody, like any kind of artist or whatever, started on YouTube. So it was cool to make videos and eventually make some people liked a little bit, but you never can really tell, right? Because you have a lot of your friends saying this is great, but what does that mean? And it takes so long. You have an idea, and then you got to like write it down. Then you got to get friends to help you make it. You got to get all this gear to shoot it. Then you edit it, and suddenly it's like weeks and weeks since you thought of that first thing, and it warps it. So stand-up's cool because you have an idea, and you're like, I'll go say that to a group of people. You walk out, say it, and they laugh or they don't. So you know immediately if something's funny. So I think that's like what it's like, I guess, to check on something or to find out if it's funny. You just say it. You know?
And I think like it kind of builds character because you kind of get like that instant like gratification in some places. Like you might be at a club and you might say a joke, and I think I'll prefer like no laughs than rather than that one person in the crowd like, hey man, that shit was trash, bro. And I'm like, oh man, you have to tell me that, bro. Like I get it, you didn't laugh. You didn't have to tell me that.
Right, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, I guess I don't too many. I think that I have a vibe where I seem kind of like weak and defenseless on stage. People are like, this kid is very innocent and nice. I'm not going to shit on him. Um, but yeah, I mean, luckily I'm not like bombing or performing to absolute silence very much anymore. But when that does happen, oh man, it's crazy. It is nuts. But yeah.
Do you have like a crazy bombing story?
Yeah, when I was brand new at comedy, I'd been doing it for like 2 months, and I was 20, so I couldn't get up at like all the regular open mics in Philadelphia, so I could only get up at like one a week that would let me on when I was 20. So I did it for 2 months, which means that I got on stage probably 6 to 8 times, and I hosted this show in my house, in my living room. Invited all my friends, packed it out, just like 60 something people, like just slammed into a living room, and I brought some other comics from the city, and luckily they were good. But I tried to perform for I think like 6 minutes, and all my jokes at the time were about how much younger I was than everybody else in the room, because every time I performed everybody else was older than me.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a room with my friends, so I start this first joke and I'm like, all right, clap it up if you're 25 or older. And the joke is like, I'm like, you guys are old as shit, fuck you guys, but nobody claps because nobody was 25 or older. So now this bit's like bombing, and then I panic. I forget what the next. I look at a little note card I have, and it has like a bit is called like cell phones or something like that, and I don't remember what that means. So I just completely locked up in front of all my friends, packed into my living room, and I'm bombing like I've never bombed. And I'm like looking at my couch. I'm like, all right, shit, I gotta sit on that tomorrow. My TV's there. I'm like, all right, I gotta. This is where I live every day. I'll have to remember this. So that was brutal, but yeah, luckily since then, I don't think I've had too many like horrific, absolutely silent sets. But that was bad.
Something that I've done that I'm like, I like watch your content, and I'm curious, have you ever thought about doing it, or have you ever done it before? Because I think you'd be good at it. You ever like thought about doing like man on the street videos?
I'm trying to think if I've ever done a man on the street. No, I've never done a man on the street thing. Actually, I've done like some reality, like documentary comedy type stuff now, but it's never me there.
Mm.
But that'd be fun.
That's something you would be interested in.
Yeah, I would definitely try that out.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like starting it. It's very like it's one of those
Do you do
things.
stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. Like that's how I went viral one time, and it's crazy because
Oh
it
wow.
makes me really. It just made me upset 'cause I went, like it was a success. But you know how you work on something really hard, and you're like, man, it's gonna be the one, and it's not really the one. And then it's something that you kind of just throw together, and then it's like you're like, really? Like I didn't put any effort in this right here. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I've absolutely had that happen with like silly things. I had a video like I was making videos for like a year every other week. So I'm talking about like 20 or 30 like whole sketches with scripts and people and whatever. And the one that went the most viral was I was doing a camera test and I made like a fake music video of my two friends just walking around in the city. It took like 2 hours to make, put a Drake song on it, and it like got on College Humor and it kind of blew up. And I was like, that's the thing that all this other stuff, that's the one, but that's how it is. I mean,
Because like
people like what they like.
I review music, and there's been some times where it's like it's a really bad album, and like I usually like write my notes like on a pizza box. That's like kind of my thing, and I'm writing it, and I'm just like, yo, I'm gonna really go on this album. I got good jokes. I'm like, I'm killing this. Nobody cares. But the thing that goes viral is one of these little Man of Street videos I do, where I go around and ask, primarily it was women, why do women love guys from the hood? And I was like, it's just a little silly video. Gets like 6 million
Right.
views, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, why is that the thing? So, yeah, man, it's crazy. Why do you think it's like that? Why is it the things that we don't expect to be, the one?
I mean, I don't know, man. I've also had a couple of things now that I was like, this is the project. I want people to see this. And like that, then it does do well. And that's always nice. But I don't know. I think that if I've learned one thing, it's that people don't have a lot of time and they don't really care
Mm.
about how much time I've put into something. It's whether they are like grabbed by the headline or the image or the first or the premise of it, and then they'll click and watch. And like I said, if they like it, they like it. But what is really cool is when people get invested enough. They see one thing and they're like, I like this guy, I'll check out other stuff. And then the things that wouldn't have done as well, because of that, it's like your man on the street video has probably done a lot for the videos that you're
Yeah,
actually like really really proud
yeah.
of, and that's cool too. I think those videos are cool because even if it's not your favorite stuff, if you can make people into a fan of your other things, it's like I think it's all good.
It's kind of interesting you bring up like they don't care how much work we put into it, but the people who do care, like sometimes, like say like a musician may listen to it, a musician may listen to another artist's music and be like, oh, I could tell how much work you put into it, versus a casual fan who's not really paying attention to that. So one thing I'm really into is wrestling, right? And
Sure.
wrestlers always talk about how they look at matches differently from a casual fan because they know everything that's going on, so they're critiquing it with a different eye. So
Oh yeah.
so as a comedian, do you look at other people's stand-ups and critique it like with a different eye that you would versus a casual watcher?
I think that I kind of have the same like trajectory with the way that I think about other people's stand up because I was like a fan at first, so I just loved everything,
Mm.
and then I was getting into stand up and I like wanted to feel like I knew what was good and bad, and I was insecure about my own stand up because it was brand new. So I think that I kind of became a hater on a lot of people's stand up and would just talk shit on this special's bad and that special's bad and this person sucks and I don't care if they're famous, like they're terrible or whatever. And now I think I'm coming around to appreciate a lot of people's stuff because even if I don't like it, and it's kind of like what I just said, like if somebody has a special that I don't really like, but they're absolutely killing, they're in front of a huge audience, and a lot of people see the special, that's good for comedy. I
Yeah.
think a good example is a lot of people, and people have made this point before, but a lot of people for a long time would just shit on Dane Cook because it was an easy thing to do. He was the most popular comedian, but he made comedy popular again. He got so famous he wasn't just promoting himself, he was promoting like stand up. So people were just getting back into stand up, and I really do think that Dane Cook, because he was the most famous comedian in like the mid 2000s, is kind of responsible for in some part like anybody who has a career in comedy now. He like
Mm.
made it popular again. And that's cool. So I think that I am critical of other people's stuff because I do stand up, but I think more than ever, I appreciate it. If somebody's a big act, I look at the things that make them really popular with their fans, or the things that make people happy that they do, and I'm like, okay, what can I learn from that? And probably more constructive.
Do you think there's a thing like comparing it to music again? You know how like there's some radio music that's looked down upon. It's like, oh, it's just like cheap radio music. Do you think that there's like comedy where it's like, oh, they're just cheap stand up versus like, oh, this is like the purest
The
real
real
thing?
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolute. Yeah, and it's almost always the very popular people versus the not as popular people, and I think that there's truth to it. Some really popular comics do some things that are boring, but a lot of comics that I think fancy themselves as these like underground comedic geniuses and whatever have like really funny things, and also have a lot of like weak spots too. I don't know. I think there are definitely conflicts like that though, where people think that like famous people don't deserve it and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But
Is there something that you think that's like a cheap stand up thing to do? It's like, oh, like that's just like such an easy route to go.
I just think that if you cover territory that a lot of other people have covered, it's like, I think you can do really well on stage and not say interesting things. I think that you can go to a comedy show, laugh a lot, and then not really think about it that much anymore. And it's like, that's fine. But then I also think that there are people who have really thought-provoking, interesting comedy, but it's like not that funny. So then you're like, I'm not having a great time. I think trying to get in the middle where you're like really funny, but you're also, as much of an original voice as you can be is like ideal. But yeah, man, people cover like the obvious things people talk about are like the differences between men and women, or like this race versus that race. Like these are the kind of boring topics. But the other thing is like if you have something that's interesting and original to say about it, then it's like the best shit ever. So it just depends on who the person is and how smart they are, and how funny they are.
I don't even know what you would call this, but I think my least favorite comic is like a comic who does like questions. So like they'll come out like, so how many people been to Walmart before, man? Y'all been to Walmart before? Like I hate that type of comic. It's like, how many of y'all got knees? Y'all got knees? Y'all been to knees? Like,
Yeah,
hey,
right.
up.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing with like YouTubers, right? Like people that make like quote quote like relatable comedy, where it's not even like you're coming up with an observation about it. You're just pointing out a thing that we all do that we don't talk about it, and people laugh because they recognize it, but not because you have interesting insight. I think that like a really great joke is pointing out something like that, but then also having an observation that's like really unique to your brain or whatever. That's like the next step.
I feel like what that is, like a YouTuber like that, is like reaction videos. So people who just like, oh my gosh, she just jumped over a car. Oh my gosh. It's like, okay.
Right.
I feel like that could be like the cheap comedy or whatever in the YouTube channel for sure.
I think that is true. And some of the reaction videos are cool, but yeah, a lot of it's because it's easy to like just put on and people just click on it, and it's easy to make a good headline, and they're cheap to produce. It's like, I think the one cool thing about there being so much content and there being so much stuff is that people are more media now than ever, so they're way smarter. Like every fan of everything knows about way more shit and has seen way more stuff, so they're really discerning and smart. And I think that that's cool if you make things, because you can go a lot further than you would have been able to in the past.
Definitely. And I feel like somebody who's going to go really far is you, man, because you're a legend. You created the whole Vave thing. That's crazy, man. That whole Vave thing was a really, really wild thing. And I think I loved it so much because it put me in the mind of, I don't know, I mean, I would imagine you've seen this before, but the show Nathan For You, the Nathan Fielder show, that's what it put me in the mind of, because that's kind of like just fooling the media. Because when it got to that part, I'm just looking at like the whole special, I'm like, this is already good. But when it got to that part, I was like, you really went crazy with that for you to fool everybody. And possibly my favorite part of all of that is definitely Scoot. That was probably the funniest part. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that guy, Scott is the man. It's so funny. We were worried he was going to be mad about it, and then he found it like a month later when it was out, and his Instagram post was just like, hell yeah, Comedy Central season, baby. Like, he was excited to just be on. That guy was so good, and he was so nice, and people... well, that's one of the things that's almost like within one project. You know, just talking about how sometimes things take off in a way that you don't expect them to, and it's not the thing that you predicted it would be. I didn't really that people would connect so much with Scotty, but that's like a lot of people's favorite part is just how genuine this guy is. Like for any of his flaws or whatever, he's so real.
And it's so crazy because it's like you got so like lucky to land him out of everybody. That's just it fits so perfectly.
We had a lot of people apply, and we brought in a few people. And once he was in there, and I was on the call with that guy, I was like, I already know that this is the guy. It was like, and you can. It's cool because in the thing, it's all just like 100% what was happening in real time. It's like you can see my face. I'm thinking when he said, and if anybody hasn't seen it, it's like it's this guy who I'm interviewing to work at a fake company, and the interview is going so crazy on FaceTime that I'm doing with this dude, or on the phone or whatever, that like you're seeing my face light up because I know the lines he's saying, like the things he's telling me are going to be in the show. I'm like imagining, as he's talking, I'm like imagining a crowd seeing this for the first time and like losing their minds because he's so funny and he doesn't know it.
I seen you were literally like kind of stumped for a second when the Viola thing was going on, like when he said Google it, and you're like, what? You like you Google
yeah,
it?
I was like, I can't believe that this guy is a real guy, and I wondered too. I was like, there were a few moments in the show that were so funny and were so perfect that I was like, I hope people understand that this is 100% real. Like, we didn't game the system in any way. We didn't. It's like I really walked through exactly everything the way that it happened. So yeah, some of the things people said and people did blew my mind.
That's why I feel like you should definitely try to do like man on the street videos because you get answers sometimes and you're like are you really serious? Like is that really what you think? Like, that's really like a genuine thought in your head. That's amazing.
Right.
Like, yeah, you come across a lot of idiots doing those type of videos. And I would imagine you come across a lot of idiots like just in comedy in general. Like I would just imagine like that world you would I would imagine less so during other arts because I would like a lot of great comics. I always say that to be really like a great comic or a really funny person, you have to make everybody laugh. You can make your friends laugh. You can make your peers laugh. When you can make old people, young people, white people, black people, Asian people, I feel like that's when you're really, really funny. When you can capture a great audience. Like, do you feel like you've got to that point yet where you've captured a lot of people, or do you still think like you're stuck in the younger people realm or whatever?
No, I think that I think that there's a widespread of people that like what I do. I mean, there's not like a huge number of them. I'm not famous. I don't have a bunch of fans, but I do think that I'll say this: like when I go different places to do stand up, I don't change my act. I like do the same thing in a room of young people, in a room of like old people, at a hip place in LA or New York, or in a random casino in like Atlantic City. Or I think that it is nice to know that the stuff like works and people connect with it. Now, there are some things that are definitely easier with young audiences, just because they can relate to me because I look like them. But no, that's the cool thing about comedy. It's like you can, if you work hard to relate to a lot of people, the things people say to you after a show or whatever, it's surprising that they get everything or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I feel like you definitely have relatable humor. Just talking about like your equality, the gay quality porn thing. I thought that was a definitely good one because literally like a couple days ago, my friend asked me, "Do I watch gay porn?" And just very casually, like no, like it was really it's really interesting. Like that happened, then I watched that and I was like, wow, it's like this is brought to me by God. It's crazy, brought by porn gods. So yeah, I definitely just feel like you definitely do have relatable humor. Is that something that you like try to do, or is that just a natural thing that comes out in the process?
I think that I think that I'm I'm definitely lucky because I like just look like a lot of people, first of all, and I look like what my audience looks like, and I think that like the biggest comedy audience is probably like nerdy straight white dudes. So to be like a nerdy straight white dude makes things way smoother and opens a lot of doors because when people see me, there are so many comedians that like look like this that I get this extra bump in credibility because they're like, oh, I can imagine how this is a comedian. Where if I looked a lot different, or if I was like a woman or anything, there's another like layer of like okay, I'll watch this even though they don't look like I think
Yeah,
they should look. So, um, but I think that makes it easier. But yeah, I do try to write stuff that that people will like, if that makes sense. I never want to be the kind of comic who's like, if you don't get it, fuck you. Not everybody thinks this way. Some people lean into like, I want to do the work I want to do,
yeah.
and I think that that's cool. Bit of that, but I want to like entertain people first. So if that means that I have something that I think is funny that I can't get across to them, I'll just drop it because I'd rather find a way to entertain them and reach them than just be like, fuck you, you get me or you don't.
No, definitely. Shout out to Comedy Central for putting a lot of young comics on that little like Comedy Central stand up thing. You, Jack Knight. It's a lot
Yeah,
of really young, funny people on there. He's hilarious, but yeah, it's a lot of young, funny people on there for sure.
yeah. Jack's a good buddy. I was just with him this weekend. He's so funny,
I interviewed him as well. He's a very very funny guy for sure.
so good. Yeah,
Also the I forget his name, but he was in the little series you directed with Comedy Central. Light skinned dude with a beard. Um,
Clayton English.
he's hilarious. Him.
Dude, Clayton is like, it's unreal how funny he is. His album is so good. Anytime you see him live, he's a guy who like, and I think this gets both he and Jack are this type of thing where if you're a comic, you see a lot of comedy. So even if it's a great comic that I grew up a fan of or whatever, I don't always watch their set
Yeah.
because it's like I've seen it or I don't care. But Jack and Clayton are both dudes that it's like you walk back in the room to watch what they do.
That's crazy. Is there other like? Is there a comic? Are there other comics like that for comics? Like I guess like the bigger names that like I don't know like in the industry as like oh that person's on you have to go back on and watch them. Is there like other people like that that's like well known and like oh you have to go back and watch that shit?
I feel like I feel that way about um, I feel that way about Naomi Ekper. I feel that way about Tim Dillon. I feel that way about Kate Berlant, and I feel that way about there's this guy he's on Comedy Central now. He's up next, but this guy Shane Gillis is also somebody. So I think those four people just like off the top of my head are people where I'm like I want to go see what they'll do now. You know.
Okay. Is there anything else you have to say before we get out of here, man?
Um, more Control Room is coming. We're doing a TV version of it now, so there will be more episodes of that show. If
So
you haven't seen it, go watch Control Room on Comedy Central.
so it's the concept of you just doing that and just like with other things. Like what exactly is the concept of Control Room?
Yeah, Control Room, if you haven't seen it, is a show where I do like a big kind of grand social experiment, mostly through the internet, where I kind of like puppeteer the entire thing, and it plays out in the real world. Everything's real. It's almost like a documentary. And after the experiment's done, I go audience with a big giant screen, and I like break down how I did everything. So that's what will stay. So like obviously we're not going to do time. It'll be a new sort of secret social experiment that we're doing now. And Comedy Central is nice and it's given us like a bigger budget, so hopefully it'll be a big crazy mess.
Last question about that because it was interesting the way you were going about like some of the legalities of it or whatnot. I'm pretty sure it's like it's like your first time kind of dealing with like major legal stuff and like things you can't
Sure.
do. How annoying is that? Because I would imagine that to be kind of annoying.
It's annoying in the sense that you can't do whatever you want, but what ends up happening is like you just get, they the legal like the legality of doing a documentary like prank show in the vein of a Nathan For You or like Eric Andre or whatever is that it creates like a box,
Yeah.
and I think that makes everybody more creative. If
Mm.
people draw lines where they're like, you better not cross this line, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to make the effort to go right up now. So it's fun. I would say that it's fun and it's challenging, but it makes everything take a lot longer.
Okay. Sorry I cut you off, but yeah, like I said, anything else you have to say before we get out of here? You were talking about Control Room, and I just cut you off. I apologize.
Oh no, all good. Just go watch it. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, so for everybody watching, appreciate you guys. Until next time, I say what I mean what I say. Haters are gonna hate, players are gonna play. You guys holler at your boy.